The Bible says, "Fill your hungry soul with what's good." When we eat, we share, we grow. Every meal is a chance to be fed and to feed someone else. Life is like cooking. When it works, it doesn't matter if the process is fancy or simple. Good food and a life well lived comes down to how much heart you put in. Welcome back. In this episode, we're going to be making cinnamon rolls. And throughout the Bible, cinnamon is used for all kinds of special occasions. They would use it in oil to anoint people. They would use it to celebrate. And if somebody special was coming over, it was like, break out the cinnamon, the head honcho's coming, we want to impress them. So it's got a really interesting history. The cinnamon tree is an evergreen tree. And that reminds me that during this time of year, we always talk about keeping the Christmas spirit in our heart. We always talk about not forgetting. I don't know about you, but by the time May comes around or June, I'm not thinking about Christmas. I'm not thinking about having that Christmas spirit in my heart. I'm probably thinking about the laundry or what bills I have to pay or the challenges that I'm going through in the middle of the year. So this is a really nice way to remember when you come back, make these cinnamon rolls anytime during the year. Anytime you want to celebrate yourself, celebrate somebody else, welcome a guest into your house. It's a really nice way to celebrate. And it's also a really nice way to remember that Christmas spirit. So I know that you're going to come back and watch this video a couple of times because you're going to be like, okay, what is that recipe again? Those cinnamon rolls were amazing. I want to go back and make them. And you're going to be able to hear this message one more time. So no matter what time it is during the year, I want you to remember to keep that Christ light in your heart, to keep that Christmas spirit in your heart, and share it all year long. So the first thing that you want to do is make a base for the dough. To a saucepan, we're going to add 1 cup of whole milk. And you can use any kind of milk, but whole milk just makes it really nice. Three eggs. Go ahead and give that a whisk and break up the yolks. To that mixture, we're going to add our sugar. And salt. Give it a little bit more of a whisk. And to that, we're going to add our butter. Down there. Then we're going to go over to the stove. You want the butter to just melt. You don't want to cook the eggs and you don't want to boil the milk because everything will curdle and you'll have really milky scrambled eggs. So you want to make sure that when you put this in that your mixture is not going to be too hot because we don't want to kill the yeast. So you should be able to stick your finger in it and not be burned. It should be just lukewarm temperature. We're going to sprinkle the yeast right on top. I'm going to let that sit for about 5 minutes or so. Now we're going to add our flour just a bit at a time. About a cup at a time. So the next step is that we're going to take about a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of flour. And if you've watched my bread video, you know exactly what we're gonna do. And it always helps if you have a little bit of flour on your hands to go ahead and roll this out. And we're gonna just knead this. But you can kind of see it's a sticky dough. So we're gonna knead this. What you want is you want it to be elastic. I don't know how many of you have noticed, but I'm in my pajamas because the tradition is on Christmas morning, this is when I make these. But you don't have to make them on Christmas morning, especially if you have to go somewhere to another family's house or if you have little kids. They are perfectly fine to make the day before. If you stick them in the fridge, what'll happen is it'll just slow the rising process, and you can just put them right in the oven on Christmas morning and they're perfect. But these are really good to have anytime. You don't need an excuse or a celebration to make these. You can make them anytime. All right, we're gonna just form them back into a ball. Next thing that you wanna do is grease the bowl a little bit. And then you also wanna take some and put it all over your dough ball. And what this is gonna do is it prevents cracking as it rises. And so you're not gonna have any dry patches or cracking. It's really important because otherwise you're gonna have really hard pieces to work with, and then you have to take those hard pieces out. And take this extra step and you'll be happier with the product. So he goes in here. Go ahead and cover him with a piece of cling wrap or saran wrap or whatever brand is in your area. Cover it with a towel, put it in a warm place, and let it rise for about an hour. Now we're gonna make the filling. So we wanna add our light brown sugar, cinnamon, salt, give that a little bit of a mix. Break up any chunks that you have in your brown sugar. To this, I'm going to add melted butter. Put it to the side to wait. So this has been sitting for about an hour, and we want to put a little bit more flour on our surface. A little bit of sprinkle right on the top. It's going to be easier if you sort of pat out a rectangle shape, because that's what we want, right? Because we're making the cinnamon rolls and we're going to have to roll them up. So if you start out with kind of a rectangle shape, you're going to be better off. So now we just want to roll it out. Roll it out into a rectangle shape, and you're looking for about a 1/4 inch of thickness. And again, you're wanting it to be as even as possible. You can kind of see it springing back a little bit. Right. Now we're going to add the filling. And what I like to do is just dab a little bit in spaces so it's easier to spread out. And again, I like to use my hands. You can use the back of the spoon, but your hands are such great tools. You want to get right up to the edge, but don't go over the edge. Leave a little bit of room, but not too much, because you don't want dough where there's not filling. All right, now it's time to roll. So take one end, do a pretty tight roll to begin with. And when you get to the end, roll it around, and you're going to kind of want to pinch this together a little bit so he stays. So there you have your roll. This is the way that I like to do it. Some people will cut it from this, but I always want to make sure that I get an even cut, and I want to make sure that I get 12. So what I do is I will judge where the middle is, and with a serrated knife, cut down the middle, and then I will cut those pieces in half. And then for each of those, I will do 3. And that will give you a perfect 12. And if you use a serrated, you're not going to squish it down because we don't want to squish them. We want them to be nice and round and beautiful. Now we're going to cover them for about 25 minutes to half an hour. Start with our butter. We're going to wait till that melts. And add our sugars. What you want is for the sugar to be completely dissolved in the half and half and the butter. You want a very smooth glaze, but you don't have to let this boil. So while they're still warm right out of the oven, we want to go ahead and glaze them. What you want to make sure that you do is get all of the little swirls. Because remember, this glaze is a little bit more like a caramel.
Thanks for watching. You can find the full recipe in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.